Okay, right now on the flip side, episode 76, Dustin is going to be sharing about
the connection between giving and grace.
And Josh,
how generosity is a massive point of growth for your family.
And then I'm going to talk about the ripple effect of generosity right now on the flip side, episode 76.
Let's
go.
Woo! Woo! Welcome to the flip side. I am not Kurt Harlow. My name is Jordanna Sadri. I'm one of the pastors here at the Bayside family, and I'm here with two of my good friends and fellow colleagues. This is Dustin Larson and Josh Powers. Hey, Dustin, why don't you... Dustin!
Yes.
This is your first time on the flip side.
This is my first time.
Oh, wow.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I feel pretty excited. My parents
tell folks what you do around here.
So I am the Connections Pastor, and I oversee Growth Track here at Bayside Granite Bay. So
yeah, fantastic. Dustin, you're married. You have some kids.
I do. I have 4 children. So I have a 17-year-old, I have a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a soon-to-be 8-year-old. So we are.
Do you count those off or?
Yeah, Dustin. That's great job.
Yeah, my wife is very busy, so she carries most of the load with that. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Great team.
Yeah,
great team.
Yeah, great team.
And Josh, you've been on the flip side before, but
I have, yeah. Hey,
what do you do around here?
I am a students pastor. Yeah, I get to work with mostly high school students, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm at the Blue Oaks campus, so I get to come over here and visit with you guys now and again. It's a great thing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And we get to work together. We're actually all working together on a project currently. We're all gearing up to take high school students, college-age students, and adults to Mexico.
Everybody. Yes.
So,
guys,
yeah.
Jordanna,
it's going to be awesome.
I know. We got this. So,
4 weeks or something.
So my job.
No stress.
Yeah, my job as the global outreach pastor is I get to oversee that, but work with great staff to make that happen. And we're going to be taking a little over 1,100 folks to be the hands and feet of Jesus in Mexico.
It's the greatest thing ever.
One of my favorite things about the flip side is Serena and the coffee.
Yes, of course.
So Serena, we have some coffee.
We do. We have some
today?
beans from Do Coffee Drink Stuff. Do Stuff Drink Coffee. That's what it is.
Oh yeah, Do Stuff Drink Coffee.
And it has flavor notes, syrupy flavor notes of cherry cola. Yep, and milk chocolate.
Cherry cola coffee?
Why are you trying to convince me that there's soda in this? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Fill it up
but
anyway. We'll see what happens.
Just smell it, and then you'll change your mind.
I'll have a go.
It'll be okay.
I'm actually kind of excited
come on.
after all that.
That's good, yeah.
That's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent.
All right, you guys
Thanks,
ready to do this thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you.
Come on.
So, here we go. Flip side.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Great. And I'm excited because my floral clipboard is making its debut.
It's great.
On the flip side, we have been talking about, we've just been talking about being blessed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hashtag blessed. It's not what you
great.
think. And this last weekend in our services, we talked a lot about tithing and giving and being generous and what it looks like to sometimes as Christians we run away from God, and then how do we reconcile that and get kind of back into God's blessing. And so one of the things we thought would be kind of fun to talk about is even just our own personal stories, how we've maybe wrestled with that in our journey with the Lord, and how we've come to a place where we can be faithful as givers, as folks who are giving back to God, since everything is His anyway, right? And Dustin, you've got a story. What has that process been like for you in your life?
Yeah, well, we had a campaign at our church, and so my wife and I were, praying about what are we going to give to the campaign, that whole ordeal. And of course, my number and her number were completely, different. And I thought, I'm gonna,
wait,
what?
I'm gonna, you and your wife would have different,
a different opinion on something. It's crazy, but So I told her, I go, you know what? I'm thinking $6,500. I thought she was gonna be, wow. My husband, he's a man of faith.
Huge
we're
faith.
gonna give $6,500 that we didn't have at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we were, I was barely getting paid anything at the time. And anyway, she's going, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, I was thinking 10,000." And I go,
That's like almost twice as much.
yeah. And so I said, okay, well,
Yeah.
I don't know where that's going to come from. And you know what, but we prayed about it together and really felt like that's what we were supposed to do. And lo and behold, I mean, we gave that money, but we were kind of coming towards the end of the campaign going, I don't know how we're going to do this. Like I don't know how we're actually going to be able to pay this.
Yeah.
Fulfill the
commitment,
right? And so we had made sacrifices. I was trying to like sell things online and, do different things to kind of try to, come up with the money that we had, pledged to this campaign. And it was the weekend before the campaign was like coming to an end. And I had a board member come up to me and pray with me. We would have people come forward for prayer. And so he comes forward and he goes, hey, actually, I want to pray with you this morning. And I go, oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he starts praying for me, and I could feel him like reach into my pocket, and I'm going, what in the world is happening right now? And he goes, hey, I just want you to know, like, you and your wife are such a blessing, and I just put a check in your pocket for $10,000. And
Wait,
yeah,
did he know about
What?
the amount?
he
Hannah's
had no
jumping
idea.
in.
He had
Yeah,
no.
did
He had no
he
clue.
had no idea
He had no clue
about the
about the
commitment?
amount. Yeah, he had no idea of what we committed. And he goes, not only that, but for tax purposes is what he said. He goes, my wife also has a check for $10,000 that she's giving to your wife.
Whoa.
So yeah, it was incredible. And to say,
Wow.
that I was blown away and never doubt like what God can do through your giving. So, and yeah.
I'm
faithful.
sorry, Josh. Like, I didn't realize the story was going to be like that. I would
Like,
have
we
had you
should
go
have talked
first.
through this.
I would have had you.
I'm sorry.
I would have had you start because it's hard to. It's going to be hard to.
All right, hey,
follow
well,
one of
cheers,
those,
man.
but-
It's good to be here today.
Yeah.
All right, guys,
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
And we're out. No.
No, actually, it's kind of interesting. You brought up a couple of dynamics, right? Like your wife, that interaction. And I know you mentioned having this conversation with your daughter too recently, which I definitely want to hear about a little bit more about how to do because mine is only 4, so we're like the piggy bank stage at this point. But it actually has been a really faith-building experience for us as we've gone through. My wife didn't grow up in church, like she didn't have the background of faith to come from. And so where I did, giving was something that you did, and not even just monetary giving, but giving of your time to serve. Like weekends were for getting stuff done. They were your time away from work, and that was her mentality. And so honestly, like generosity in general has been a massive point of growth for us as a couple, as friends, as partners in marriage, because it's been so many of the different angles of our lives that it's forced us to address. How do we spend our time? Where are we jumping in and getting involved? Where are we having radical obedience to like take someone to dinner when we didn't have time to? Like gratitude extends in so many directions, but that doesn't apply any like bigger than when it comes to finances, right?
Sure.
And so totally coming from her background of not having obedience to scripture, right, as our authority for giving, it was a really interesting journey for us. And so starting out, even just having a conversation of like, are you serious? We're just supposed to like give our money to them. Like, how do you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot that. It's wild. And so it's been such a cool process to see over the last 9 years, to see this journey get to the place where we had a similar story of like starting up the motion campaign a couple of years ago and having similar numbers and her being way bigger than mine and just being blown away by like God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
Because I think, man, sometimes, especially in areas like tithing, anytime I hear about it, I get uncomfortable, not because I'm not okay with the idea of tithing, because it always makes me question, like, am I all in?
Yeah.
Like, am I holding something back? Do I need to like look at my own heart and like be recommitted in some way? And I'm always like really hard on myself. Maybe you guys are too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, am I doing it right? And I'm like, wait, that's not the.
We're our own worst critic, and
Yes,
we're so hard on ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so it's been really cool to see that growth, because that brings up a conversation that's super good.
No, as a parent, so we're all parents, and kind of similar to Courtney. You know, my husband and I didn't grow up in the church. We're the first, Christ followers in our family, And gosh, when you become a parent, you're even more so going, I hope I'm doing this right. I hope I'm influencing my kids. And we all have a level of, everyone's got a level of influence and people that they're impacting. And how are we doing that? And you brought up the motion campaign. Most of our campuses are at some level in this motion campaign where we're giving even over and above our tithe, right, to support extra ministries that our church is doing, and we've called it Compassion First, and there's 60 plus local and global projects that we're doing. And so our kids started getting wind of that and hearing about it. And one day over the summer, my daughter is sitting with a couple of neighbor kids, and they're drawing, like watching YouTube videos on how to draw a popcorn, dancing popcorn container, or drawing, a ice cream pop. And I don't know, my daughter said, I wonder if we could sell these around the neighborhood. I'm thinking, you're 7, you're very cute, but you're gonna go and sell these pictures around the neighborhood. And my husband followed my son, my 5-year-old son, my 7-year-old daughter, and a couple of neighbors around the neighborhood, and they came back with $75.
That's amazing.
That neighbors gave them, and what they said was, hey, our church is doing this motion campaign. I don't think they probably called it motion, but they said there's girls in Cambodia that are going to be helped by this money, and then there's people that don't have a place to live who are homeless, and we're going to give this money. And man, like just the pride in them to go, we're, and it didn't seem like much. And it was awesome to bring them in on the weekend, and actually they gave that money. We even brought our neighbors to church that weekend, and they gave that money to Andrew.
Wow.
He bumped it up to $100, and he said, I'm going to match it and give it to the campaign. So it's great to see when, some of that stuff has a ripple effect.
Every little bit counts. I mean, you're a part of global outreach. A lot of the Compassion First causes that the Motion Campaign is funding is literally things that you get to be a part of.
Yeah, it's gosh, I have the best job at Bayside, sincerely, because I do get to interact with a lot of the folks that are receiving these funds, that folks from Bayside are sacrificially giving. I mean, they're giving with just these generous, sincere hearts. And when we talk about, tithing in services and go, hey, 20%, what was it? About 20% of the folks within our church are tithing consistently. And what could be possible if that percentage grew to 40%, 60%, 100%, of the folks that call, Bayside Church or any church, right? Because if we're belonging to any church, right, we're giving back to what God is doing. So that's pretty exciting. Well, one of the points from this last weekend is how sometimes we end up running from God's blessing, and we sometimes find ourselves in a place where we really forget how much God loves us, right? And when we give with an understanding of God's love for us, we can give at a place of, we really are giving back to the one who has been the most generous, with us. Have either of you found yourself in a spot where you felt like, gosh, this was a season where I had trouble remembering how much God loved me, or how perfect and amazing his love for me and my family
like you mean was like day this week?
I know it's hard, right? It's hard because you gotta wake up every morning and go, okay, brand new mercies. The sun rose. I'm up. I'm breathing.
Well, I mean, it ultimately comes down to a conversation about trust, and that's what generosity gets at the heart of, and it's why, man, sometimes it's like, do you really trust me? And I feel like time and time and time again through Scripture, God is going, all right, do you trust me?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's with money. I mean, we see that, but Abraham, it's like with his son, like it's like all the things that we value most, he's saying, do you trust me? And man, there's so many times that I trust myself, like I trust my wife, and like I naturally, that's why I made the joke daily, like, kind of, because I'm really good at substituting myself in, and I don't even think that, but this idea of giving forces me to like address my own heart and realize, well, what's the motivation? And is it, me, God, otherwise? So it's real.
Yeah, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm recently having a conversation with my 17-year-old, talking about how are you spending your money? Like, show me your bank statement. Like, what are you spending money on? And the bank will actually track it. And so it's like, are you, living a life to that's about you, or and it's just like, well, you know what I mean, I buy gifts for my friends, but okay, so what's the heart behind giving gifts to your friends? Like, just kind of seeing the heart behind it. Is it because you're expecting something in return, or whatever that looks like for each individual? But I think, like, I know you mentioned it earlier, but like really looking at your checkbook really does kind of give us a good idea of what we're investing in, what we're putting our money in. And I mean, honestly, since Amazon came, Amazon's made my life a little bit hard.
It's just
in
boom,
the
boom.
Yeah,
And
it's
there
just
it goes.
click,
Just
click.
boom,
It's like
boom,
it
and
shows
there it
up
goes.
at my doorstep. It's like Christmas,
All
and
you
my
need
wife's
is
like,
one
we
finger.
pay for that, right? Like, it's not free.
Yeah.
Just
There's not a like magical Amazon
Yeah.
fairy that, I mean, well, there is, but the
Yeah.
money does magically
Wait,
get
there is?
I'm like, it
subtracted.
just keeps,
Well, it's a guy in a
circling
van,
back
but
in
I
there.
mean, it does,
Yeah.
actually come out of our bank statement. Yeah, we were talking in the sermon prep meeting, which is where I brought up very early on in my Christian faith. I was single, and I actually had been on the mission field, so I was a recipient of a lot of folks giving towards just me even being able to be overseas, representing our church and representing Christ, and working with college students in North Africa. And then I came home and I was going, well, I'm giving to this friend who, serves with Campus Crusade for Christ at this college campus, and I'm giving to that person. And I actually had a conversation with one of our pastors, because the amount that I was actually tithing to the church, it was a little wonky, let's just say. So I felt like I was being generous, and I was giving towards people, and I would buy gifts, and I never had any money, but it wasn't necessarily because I was being really smart with the way that I was generous. And I love technology now, because I don't have to really open my checkbook anymore. I've got the Every Dollar app, the financial peace resource, and it tells me, hey, you're overspending on groceries, or you're overspending on, hey, your Amazon bucket is $1.23 from being, overdrawn or dry or whatever.
That update goes to your husband, though, right?
Yeah. We're
Accountability,
we're
real.
a team on that one, for sure. And my husband will go, and we actually sit down. We try to do it weekly, but at best every other week, and really look and go, gosh, what did we spend money on? Because like we said earlier, there's so many great things, and having a coffee with a friend is a great thing. They might have a need, but they could also come to my house and have a coffee out of my Keurig, and it wouldn't hit the bank statement as hard as going to Foursquare, the places that I love, and adding extra, things to it. But it's great to be able to take a look at that, and you'll know what you love when you look at your bank statement. I mean, you could say, hey, I love the church. You could say, I love being a part of, what God is doing with refugees here in Sacramento, and I want to help meet those needs, or even globally, or hey, I really do want to, help free girls from being sex trafficked in Cambodia. But if there's nothing in my bank statement that reflects that, it's just empty words. I mean, I can say that I care about that. And we were talking about how people feel like they're generous, but they don't actually tithe, and what that looks like, and why, that kind of check for me of tithing to my church first before kind of giving over and above was real pivotal, in those early years. And I had to adjust some things, I had to go, gosh, maybe I do need to get my tithe to my church to at least 10%, and then be able to consider, supporting missionaries, or supporting causes, or supporting nonprofits. What kinds of things do you think people, if people have it in their mind, hey, I'm a super generous person, but...
And they probably are.
Yeah.
It's not... This conversation is always like two sides, right? Not getting after anybody necessarily, but like you said, it's just that slowing down enough. The term I've heard a lot lately is ruthlessly curious. And it's dangerous what you put on the back end of it. Be ruthlessly curious of your generosity. And because it means you have to slow down enough not to just go through the day, and at the end of the day look back and tally up wins and losses. Like, I feel like I fall into that mold so often, because you just fly through and you get to the end and it's over. But man, if try and be intentional about creating opportunities to slow down enough and actually ask questions of my motives and actually look at something like this massive idea of generosity. My goodness, there's so many ways like you bring up that it matters. And a lot of the times I find it's not a matter of willingness, it's just not it's a matter of attention. I can't give it because I'm
you
not.
You just have to pay attention.
Yeah. And I mean, we all know this. We're, people with families and kids and school pickup dates with teachers that get upset. Love you, Miss Meyer. And, it's like these things are real, right?
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned your daughter, she's 17. She's just like kind of on this cusp of, what do you feel like you and your wife have tried to do to like model and start to set up this understanding of why generosity is so massive in your guys' world?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for her, we talk about what is it that that you're doing with your money, with your what God's given you. Like, how are you? What am I trying to say? You're gonna have to cut this whole part out because I'm
Matt,
really
it's rolling.
messing up.
It's rolling,
So-
Dustin. We don't cut this.
So,
it's the flip side.
Say that question again. Like, what do how we modeled that
Yeah,
for
yeah.
her in our life? I think
Because
that,
it's more than just a conversation
Yeah, yeah.
of do it like this. It's a
Right.
lot more of do it like I do.
Absolutely, and I think that that's been something that we always tried to model, and I think she's seen that, like how when we go, oh yeah, we have heard about this Thrive student that's struggling, or they can't do this or that. Hey, what if we and we talk about that as a family, like, hey, here's a way that we can give to that person or help that person that is maybe having a tough time, because honestly, it's happened so many times in our lives, like where we were financially going, I don't know how we're gonna pay this bill or how we're going to do this, and there was God always brought somebody along that was there to like write that check or do something. We didn't even ask them to do it, but they, whether God spoke that to them or whatnot, but we've always shared that story of how people have been, there and
how God's
helped
used people to come in and,
to bless us, and even my daughter's seen that in her own life where people have stepped up and given to her so that she was able to attend some camp or whatever it was, have made sacrifices, whether it be grandparents or whatnot, for a mission trip, that kind of thing, things that were going to impact her life and that she was going to be able to pour into others. So I think that she's been able to, all of our kids have been able to see that, and this is something we bring up in conversation and talk about. So
So good.
Okay, we've touched on this, right? But we were asked to take a test, right? Just to actually take a test on what is it that we really are giving. And I love what you said, Josh, about that you have to pay attention. And I also love that people have come through for you guys. But like for us, there's definitely been times where, I can think of a few times where honestly, like no one handed me a check for no one's ever handed me a check for $10,000. At least not for like personally,
that makes two of us, Jordanna.
Yeah, okay, so I need to hang out with
Waiting
the
for that
Larsons
one to
more
come
or
along.
something. I don't know, but
Better friends.
and there's been those times where it's like, there is $1.23.
oh yeah,
Yeah. That's true.
And so even learning that lesson of paying attention and going, gosh, I gotta tell my kids we can't do this because I did make this choice, or because I didn't pay attention, and having to wrestle that.
And ultimately, a heart of generosity isn't about what I'm going to get back anyway. Like you guys didn't make the commitment hoping someone was going to come through for you.
Absolutely.
I feel like a lot of times
100%.
I hear these stories and I'm like, dude, I must be doing something wrong, right?
Yeah.
No one handed
Yeah.
me the
Yeah.
$10,000 check.
Right.
Clearly.
I'm clearly not doing it right. But man, when you start to approach life in general with this idea of gratitude because of what God's already done for us, it starts to let other things be important that may not have been without that. Man, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there,
and
but-
really just choosing to focus on, cut me off anytime. Choosing to focus on the blessings,
it.
and they're maybe not coming in way of a check, but it's, there's still food in the fridge. You know what? There is enough gas in my car to get my kids to school today, or whatever it looks like. But if someone's gonna ask you, so just why tithe? We've shared these stories. Hey, this is what God's done in our lives personally, but why do it? Why keep on doing it?
I talked a lot a minute ago.
Well, I
Dustin.
mean, I feel like, like giving and grace are connected for sure. Knowing the grace that God's had over my life and how He has, walked me through, difficult times. When we first started in ministry, we were in Miami, Florida, and we had no money. I rode the church golf cart over to McDonald's, and so I would look around and try to find change on the ground just so I could buy a hamburger. So and we sharing a car was difficult. So there were times where I stayed later or I was stuck and couldn't go anywhere, and all those things that people that only have one car or no car experience. So. And we've had times where we've had to stay with family and live with family and, the inconvenience them and knowing that, okay, I mean, we showed up with 4 kids and lived with my in-laws and and people are like, that's gotta be so hard. And I go, hard for them. Like for me, it's like, thank God, like they're allowing us to stay there, until we can kind of, get back on our feet, so to speak. So, I mean, but I mean, again, just seeing how God has always provided, even when things, from an outside perspective would have looked like, wow, the Larsons are really struggling, like life must be horrible for them. But all the while, those are some of the best times in our family's life, like our kids connecting with our their grandparents and getting to be with them where they hadn't been around them for a while, because we lived out of state. And so I think we can always find the good, like when we just have that attitude of gratitude, truly, we can find, even in those hard, difficult seasons, like, wow, God's really come through for us. Like, we are blessed. Like, no matter what. So.
Oh, it's, to the first point from the sermon is just with an understanding of God's love for us, which is personal. I mean, it's His love for us as individuals, and then for our families, and then for just us as humankind, right? So God's love for us is so great. For me, the motivation to tithe is a love back, is a response. It's that gratitude response. It's a love back. And then, it's crazy being in missions and really having to ask folks a lot to support these folks that are going on a short-term trip to Kenya to work with, women affected by HIV/AIDS, and how it's that realization that God doesn't need us. I mean, this is a crazy thing to me about tithes. Like, God doesn't need my money. Okay, God doesn't need my piddly. I mean, compared to what some other people at our church tithe, my tithe check might not even compare. But to others, maybe it's exponentially greater. Whatever level that is at, God's not going, well, Jordanna, if I don't get your tithe this month, I'm just not going to be able to do what I'm doing in this world. No, but God's plan is to use us, and so for us to be able to be just a small part to give back to what God, it's all God. We started with this. It's all God's anyways, right? But to give back and to be a part of what God's doing, like that, as a Christ follower, just being in the game is what just gets me jazzed about tithing.
Absolutely. I think it's like what we think we need versus what He knows what we really need. And so, listening to what Kurt had said this weekend, when Malachi comes and, kind of rebukes all these leaders of the church at the time, one of the things is that they had the means to be able to, make a proper sacrifice and give back, but they weren't giving Him their best. And I think that that's something that is convicting for me personally, because it's like, oh, I checked that one off, but did I really give all that I could give? Do I always give, out of like, oh, I'm going to keep this over here on the side for me because, I need whatever, something for myself. But because I did this, but could I go above and beyond that? And so I think that that's, something that we also have to keep in mind too.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, we hope that's been encouraging. This has been super encouraging to me. Josh, I'm going to write a couple of things down, Dustin, same, as we just continue to, wrestle through some of this stuff. And thanks, Kurt, for letting me take over. And Serena, this is delicious.
My mom, my dad.
The cherry cola wasn't as bad as I thought.
No, honestly, it's so good.
The cherry cola.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in to The Flip Side. This is Jordanna, Dustin, Josh, and we're signing out.